Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the news behind the news of Rav Kintav on Mix 94.7 FM. And thank you for joining me on today's program this afternoon. Today I have here with me Member of Parliament and Chair Lady of Parliament, Miss Grisha Heyliger-Marten. Good afternoon to you, and thanks for being on the program.
Good afternoon, Ralph. Thank you for having me on the program, and good afternoon to everyone listening and viewing online.
Okay, great. So it's good to have you. As I've made a few rounds with some politicians here on the program, so now I have the Chair of Parliament. But while there is quite a bit for us to talk about, I'd like to get your backstory just a little bit.
Sure.
At least from what I know, you've been in the marketing field, now entered politics. But tell us a bit more about some stuff that perhaps the general population may not know about Miss Maarten.
So you want me to go deep? Well, as you stated before, I've dabbled a lot in marketing and event planning and consulting different companies for any kind of marketing campaign they may have. I've done that for about 10 years, and just recently I've been catapulted about 2 years ago into politics. It was a personal issue that we were going through that opened my eyes to seeing the deficits and the laws that I felt that we needed to focus on and change, that really catapulted me into the politics. All of this happened years before I became a Christian in December 4th, 2016. And I think prior to that, December 4th, 2016, I had lived a very quiet life. I guess they usually say the devil don't come at you when you're playing in his field, but when you come out, he comes after you. And I guess since then, 2016, 2017, we had a hurricane. 2019, my husband had the issues, and 2020, here comes politics. And politics is a never-ending story of things that happens in politics. And the challenge has been there, and I could say I embrace them all. And I embrace them. Every challenge that comes, I smile. Just last week in Sunday church, they said, every challenge that comes, anyone talks bad about you, laugh at that. According to my pastor, laugh at that. Embrace it, don't fight it yourself. And what I have learned since then, since 2019 to now, being the most challenge I've had since now, is to learn to sit back and allow God to fight for me first. And it's the hardest thing, because I always do things on my own. I don't even know how to delegate. I just do things on my own. And I've learned to sit back and say, okay, I can't, you take control.
Well, I guess with that too, that perhaps, listening to you is an element of leadership development, which delegation is key in that, because if you do everything, you'll burn out.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
And you gotta let God be God.
And I could say it's been a learning experience. The challenges I've learned to embrace them, smile at them, and say, okay, bring it. Let's go through the challenge. And then at the end of the day, I know I will see the fruits of my labor going through the challenge. And every challenge that comes, I smile at it and I embrace it, and I learn from it.
Yeah.
And that's just my mantra moving forward.
Yeah. Well, having entered politics, one of the things that, of course, was on the agenda of everyone is to see St. Maarten bounce back, recover, progress. Right. Spoke in a wheel, though, was COVID, which none of us foresaw.
Yes.
But with that, how has it been how has it been adjusting, let's say, perhaps your political program, that you came in with, to the realities of circumstances that we now face? And, what exactly would you say has your main focus since, going on 2 years now, basically?
Yes, yeah. I think everything I championed, I've been focused on. Matter of fact, some faster, earlier than expected. I championed prior to this was my main concern, but my top three mainly were bringing balance to the justice system, because that's what really sparked my interest, and that's where we're busy right now, adjusting the penal code, and that's one of the things we're working on in Parliament. The other part was the democratic deficits, and COHO actually brought that to light, where we continued delving into doing more research and finding out that, hey, St. Maarten is not decolonized. We are, there's a lot of democratic deficits, our autonomy is being trampled on, and here comes the COHO, which more far-reaching
than before.
To trample on our autonomy. And then another thing I've championed was the less fortunate, mainly the seniors. I just within like about a few months ago, I presented a senior convenient law. We're finalizing the report right now for it to be sent to the
Council of Advice?
No, not the Council of Advice yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm still waiting for the ministers to weigh in. Now, we've had a lot of challenges in Parliament, short staff, and
Yeah.
yes. I have to wait on that, on them to finalize the report so that we can bring it to the ministers, have them weigh in, and then finalize the law, and then send it to the Council of Advice. So it's a lot of challenges, but everything I've tabled thus far, I've been able to champion and present in Parliament.
Okay. All right. So you shared a couple of things where I want to discuss much later down in the interview.
Yes. But you asked me.
Yeah, no, not in a bad way, but that's okay. That's okay because one thing you brought to light is something I've actually spoken about quite often on my program, which is especially with the bottlenecks in justice system.
Right.
It's the most entrenched in the Dutch and in the kingdom.
Right. In the world, actually, I think.
And the issue about it is that it really alienates your local population, and it seems like there's not enough fervent effort to get that done. And the main thing with that is really the language. There has to be a means where English is integrated so that more persons, can be involved and serve their nation in that capacity, because I do get that. Okay, cool. You can take Dutch courses, Dutch classes, etc. But even in our constitution, English is also one of our official languages, and more so, the main language spoken in the entire population is English itself.
Yes.
So we are really doing a disservice to our community, to our future, by not making those amends.
And those are one of the things that I'm going to be championing next, actually with the assistance of Member of Parliament Sarah Westcott-Williams, because she already had 2 motions with that is concerned, and I believe in continuity. So I'll be working with her on that. Actually, I'm working on 2 projects with MP Westcott-Williams, which is making English the #1 language, and that will catapult completely not only in the government apparatus, where all our documents are in Dutch, but also in the justice system, and of course, not only in the justice system, we have issues I've seen where police certain because they're not well versed in English, in Dutch, they don't want to take the course because the course is in Dutch. So things like that we're going to be looking at wholeheartedly, zooming on, and the next thing I'm kind of jumping the ground, but another future thing that I'm working on with Miss MP Westcott-Williams, which she started as well, is electoral reform. That's a meeting we're going to be calling right after the IPKO, sometime mid to late in May.
Okay. And then shortly, then July you have your recess and stuff.
July we have our recess.
Yeah, okay.
But it's about getting the dialogue done, because the trajectory we start to use right now in Parliament, especially this new Parliament, is getting everyone's input, and that's where really I want to go with it. Get everyone input, create a report, send it to the ministers, get the ministers' input, and then we decide how we move forward with it. And that is really it. What we've been busy with right now is a position paper on electoral reform, getting the MPs to read it before we call the meeting, and that's what we've been busy with right now.
Okay.
And I like that, and then that's the cohesion I want to see in Parliament. I want to see everyone weigh in and work together instead of fighting each other. Let's really roll our sleeves and work on a common goal for the country.
Yeah, Teams in Maarten, basically.
Teams in Maarten.
Gotcha. So another thing too, which you mentioned to my previous question, that came to mind is, the challenge of, I don't know if I should say challenge, but the effort rather to boost the staff of Parliament itself, because it has been so since 10, where we need legislative lawyers, etc. You, of course, having a budget that you get outside legal service and stuff.
We're working on that.
And some MPs have even expressed that they would personally, even pay lawyers to help them.
But that's been happening,
Yeah.
and that's something we want to avoid, and we need to strengthen Parliament with that. Of course, with the budget cuts, we were unable to do that, but that's always been on the budget from last year, from onset. I must say that MP Bryson was one of them that instrumental in bringing that in the budget, and I want to continue that as well. But because of the budget restraints, we were unable to execute
But I'm looking at it also long term, because there are several elements where, especially with this recent COHO discussions and stuff, one of the main points you're hearing besides trajectory is capacity building, capacity development, etc. But part of that goes into what we have in place right now, which is we have a study financing list, in terms of priority studies and so forth. So I'm curious about how much effort is being made in terms of, okay, while the funds is there, but like coaching and guiding young people into certain careers that will boost St. Maarten so that we don't have to rely on technical or consultants from elsewhere having
Human
to do work.
building.
Having to do work that we ourselves can do.
I haven't been. That's something on the executive branch as well that I think should be done. That's important, and that's
and on community level too.
Yes. I agree with your sentiments there. And that's something that is all holistically part of my end game as well to accomplish, but it's so much. But that is so lacking, and I see that now. The last 2 years, we're saying, okay, we want this person, we want to put this person in this position, we want to put this person there, and we lack so much of our own. But we need to, I think, one of the main issues there has been the salaries. And that's why many of our students stay abroad, because they get paid better. Now, what do we have to do what is really, that it means that something is wrong with our budget. We need to find a way now to start stimulating our national budget to allow us to be able to pay our people.
And I think the environment itself, because of course, I think in the recent budget debate, it came about the number of people now leaving the government administration. Yes. And even in a global sense, you have where since COVID, a lot of persons refusing to go back to work as is, choosing to work from home or start their own. So you have all of that to consider, and on the labor front, of course, as you mentioned, financially, and so all those areas to really sleeves up to get
consider.
Exactly. So one of the things then I'm curious about is on your part, how has it been adjusting to the chair of the President of Parliament?
Well, I got sworn in officially, I think it was November 26th, and then we had 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of still learning. I hardly had, because it was 2 weeks into Christmas. Then we had the Christmas break.
Yeah,
and then straight into January, we had the budget debate, and you know how that went.
Yeah.
And then right after, I think we had a lot of pending meetings. So it was mainly like, it was just jolted into a lot of things that I had to get into place and jump in and finish them. And then right after that, I said, pause for a cause, because I always believe that if you go in a position, you need to get to know the stakeholders. So what I did for myself was have meetings with all the High Council of States and everyone that's affiliated with Parliament to get a better understanding of what we can do and what's missing. And I think it was something that was brand new. I found it was a normal thing to do, but everywhere I go, they were like, this is the first time we have the President of Parliament here. I'm glad you're here, because and they came prepared with, this is what we need, this is what we need. We have these laws pending. I'm like, really?
Yeah, you do have a lot of laws pending. If you go on Parliament website, you would see them.
Ralph, to tell you the truth, it just piled up.
Yeah.
And now I have to deal with that, adjust in my new role, and still wanting to execute the vision I want, which is us working together as a team. And sitting down there, I realize, and looking at the members of Parliament, I realize that, we really been shooting ourselves in the last 12 years.
With all due respect, we need to up our game. And it's a lot of work.
We do.
That's one of the things I realize. Like, I get the public sentiment, but when you look at the responsibilities and the workload that you have as a member of Parliament with a lot of these reports, a lot of these laws, especially, again, going back to the whole Dutch thing where you have to translate it and all of that, it's a lot of work.
The work has been lagging as well for the last 12 years, stuff that we could have done easily. I mean, if you have a Parliament that consists of 2 strong people in justice, 2 strong in TIA, 2 strong in education, 2 strong... I mean, if you have a team like that,
well-oiled machine.
a well-oiled machine, I mean, there's there's limited, there's so many things we could do for the country. And I think it starts with the parties.
Yes.
Parties need to start really paying keen attention on the type of people they put on. You need people that would come in there, have St. Martin on their hat, and really do the homework and do the research.
Yeah.
We've been giving ourselves
and qualifications.
Injustice. And the qualifications, yes.
Because
it has opened
electoral
my
reform,
eyes to so many issues and faults.
So with electoral reform, you have that maybe a buffer in a sense, but at the end of the day, it also starts with the party itself.
Yes.
Because part of like what you mentioned is the fact that, well, one, in a democracy, anybody could run, decide,
Of
hey,
course.
you want to represent. So you can't limit, same way like with the media, you can't necessarily control, and that's another story.
But it goes hand in hand.
But
it's
at
not
the
only
same
the party,
time,
it's the people.
That's right. And but they have a machine or mechanism.
Yes.
So if a random individual, who just say, hey, maybe I feel like I want to give it a shot, if they don't, are not accepted by the party itself, then, in a sense, you kind of provide that protection where, you don't just get a random person. But I want to say I hope this doesn't come across bad, but you don't get someone who's unqualified necessarily, who would be then responsible for making major decisions and not able to do so.
Exactly.
I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so it's thus far, I think I have like 4 or 5 months in the position. It's opened my eyes to, all I see is the issues, and I want to fix it. It starts with electoral reform as well. It starts with informing the people the correct way, like really informing the people. There's a lot of changes that still needs to get done, and I want to make those changes while I'm still in that position.
Yeah, because one of the things then that comes to mind too is the code of conduct, which is not yet in place in Parliament. And what's
MP Melissa Gums is busy with that. I think she has the final draft, and they still have to call the meeting to approve it. But the draft is done.
Okay.
Yes, the draft is final.
All right.
From what I recall, but getting meetings in is not easy sometimes, because you go with a pace, and based on whatever's happening right now, some meetings gets cancelled. Then you call in, especially when you have to call in a third party or a minister. They can't make it that day, and it's very hard sometimes to get meetings, to call meetings, and things don't go the way you always plan in Parliament.
Sometimes you don't get a full quorum as they expect.
I have a list of meetings I said, let's get it done, and then, well, this person can't make it, this one's off file, and it's not an easy task, and
understood.
And actually, the chairs are responsible for their own meetings, for calling their own meetings. They can call me and say, listen, I'm
the chairs of the different committees.
Of each committee.
Okay.
So I know the last meeting she had was that it was final. I really don't know. I don't know if she had to make some changes and then come back and then bring it to a
So then you call which meetings? Central Committee and
Central
Public?
Committee meetings, and I'm also chair of Justice. I'm chair of Electoral Reform, so I call my own committee meetings as well.
Okay, and then public meetings, of course.
Yes, and of course, if a minister would want to come in, I would have to call and
Gotcha.
They have some information to give to.
I got you. So in a sense, you're not responsible for calling every meeting.
No, I'm not. I'm responsible, but if they're pending meeting, I'm responsible for making sure that it's called.
I understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
and sometimes when it's called with a third party, you call the third party. Oh, I can't make it this week. Well, then shift, and that's how we are every week.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things you mentioned as well that I took note of is wanting to get inclusion or input from everyone.
Yes.
But one of the factors that still remains a challenge, I've noticed that you even wrote about it in several press releases and different MPs has voiced, is to getting the responses from ministers in particular. Yes. Sometimes you will see responses take more than 3 months.
It should be 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, but I guess it's nothing really from Parliament side that you can do to better that because the thing is, it's like it's not even just specifically this government, because literally no matter who's in government, it's always been one of the main.
Yes, there's something we should do now to start strengthening. I think there's something we have to look at because it's not fair. Because say for instance, right now with something is the topic is hot and you send questions on it, you wait 3 months. By then everything's changed. It has to do with the minister itself. there are some ministers, I'm not saying all, not all of them take time to answer. Some ministers respond one time, you know, some are, and it has to do with the character of the minister, and I guess
probably the cabinet.
The cabinet as well, the type of cabinet. It's all to do with who you put in there and who you are. And for us to go and decide a policy around that instead of by 2 weeks, if you don't do, you get to tick up the finger. I mean,
no, because it
still
becomes
again boils down to
redundant,
the type of people you put in there. You know you have to answer in 2 weeks. Get it done. And you know Parliament are your supervisors, and we have to answer to the people. You're as minister, you need to know that, to respond on time. It's not like it's like you can't be acting like kids. You know your responsibility, and again, like I said, boils down to the type of people you put on your list.
Gotcha. Good point. So there's 2 more points in terms of your seat that I want to ask, and then going to some other questions. One of them being as it relates to the Parliament meeting broadcasting up on Facebook. Will that be something that will be brought back? Because I know that, of course, threw off a lot of people.
Parliament is not doing anything illegal by not putting it on Facebook. That's number one. There's nothing illegal. And the important thing is that it's broadcasted on TV, that it's live on our Facebook page via our YouTube stream. It's also live on YouTube, and it's also live on the radio. That is Parliament. Parliament has to broadcast that. Now, everyone is saying that we're sensitizing the people, and that's why we cut it. But it was mainly what was happening then. The Facebook, we have a very, very old system. And when we go Facebook Live, we always found ourselves cutting because Facebook gets, it trips. Something the Facebook is doing with our system that is triggering that. And it was always disruptive. And to this date, we're still busy trying to get new equipments in to, I'm following you, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was watching the camera.
New equipments in. And I think when we finally have that modern equipment in, then we can go to doing that.
Maintain the
it
full
was
broadcast.
mainly that disruptive thing. So like I said, Parliament is not doing anything illegal we're not deliberately sensitizing the people. We are broadcasting it in all the mediums necessary so they're able to see it. And they can make comments if they want. As they speak, you have your Facebook page, you have any kind of source of media that you can use to voice your opinion. But that was mainly the sticking point for us because it kept disrupting the live,
the stream. Okay. And then the last one is as it relates to Parliament's website, because I realized that, it's actually quite a good resource for information.
Yes.
It has this. I like that. For example, it would have a law that was passed or introduced, but even the status of it, you can track those changes, all the motions, the air report, etc., and even questions that MPs send to government. One of the things I realized is not on it is that you don't see the responses of ministers to Parliament. I don't know if you ever checked that out. So I'm just bringing that up because it's something I realized.
Remember, I just told you that we're busy modernizing our equipment. We're also modernizing, digitalizing our system. We're going to be. It's a lot of documents to put on the website.
Yeah. So
once we go to the cloud, all that information will be placed as well.
Okay.
I think it has to do with the capacity. That's why we are not able to put everything on.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yes, but that's a good point.
Because I realized that you would see the questions from the MPs, but you don't get to see the answers. So,
yes.
Okay, cool.
But that's next. That's for sure. We are considering adding that because it's public information.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep the public updated. That's key part of democracy.
Yes, sir.
So another interesting thing that's happening is, of course, this week, the IPKO will be taking place here in St. Maarten. Can you share with us what are you expecting to accomplish with this year's session, and do you foresee a meaningful interaction?
Before I answer that question, I just realized we were saying sensitizing, and I meant censoring.
Censoring, yeah, I got you. Censoring, no problem.
And also, I think digitizing.
Digitizing.
It now comes to me. I have a little
you
lisp.
trip up sometimes.
I trip up sometimes.
That's cool.
So upcoming IPKO, wow, am I excited for upcoming IPKO. Tuesday, we're going to have our tripartite meeting with Grisha and Aruba. We usually always have that, a closed door meeting, a closed door session with the 2 other countries to, discuss how we're going to move forward as a unit in IPKO and other pressing issues that we may have as island countries. And then the next meeting will be, the opening will be on Wednesday, where we're going to have an opening presentation, a presentation from both Aruba, Curacao, St. Maarten, and Holland on their status, where government provides us with information and we provide each other with where we are as a country, financially, economically, socially, and so forth, or whatever ailment, any issues we may have. And then we will have a breakout session on the COHO. Now, the breakout session will be spread out in 4 groups. And as you've known thus far, Aruba had a meeting where everyone gave their concerns. And based on what we've gathered, it's 21 seats. 3 of the 21 are pro-COHO and 19 are against. In St. Maarten, we also had our meeting and everyone voiced their opinion. And for the most factions are thus far against and some wants changes. Curacao has tabled 3 motions. One was to support the letter of the Prime Minister with his concerns. And the 2 others were listing all the, like they say, the pijnpunten and the issues that they may have. So unanimously for the most, I think from what I'm seeing from Curacao, unanimously, they too have an issue with that. We have heard in Holland 2 or 3 MPs having concerns about that. So it's going to be a very interesting day to hear holistically what everyone thinks of the COHO as it is now. COHO has evolved 4 times. 4 times. And from what I've seen from COHO thus far, it hasn't changed much. There are still far-reaching issues there. There's still, to me, the Minister of Interior, Kingdom Affairs, the BZK Minister, still has the last say. And it's still, we have really lost our budgetary control on that as well. It's a lot of concerns with that. There's a lot that we've mainly, I think for the most, we're concerned about those things. So COHO is going to, that on Wednesday is going to be a very interesting discussion. And then we will have we will see what the outcome of that is. And on Thursday, we also have, we will have 4 different topics. One is about human rights. One is about the Rosenberg motion, which is about cohesion, a better working relationship in the kingdom.
Okay.
You have the 2 motions that St. Maarten has tabled, which is the Van Raak motion and the De Graaf motion. The De Graaf motion is really to update an old statute. Remember, it's going to be 70 years in 2 years. 70 years old. It's never been amended. And
that says a lot, though.
Yes, it says a lot. and then you have Van Raak, where it's saying that we need to come to a consensus of who's responsible for what in the kingdom. So imagine on Wednesday, we're talking about the COHO, which we have thus far concluded is a control mechanism of the country. And the next day, we're talking about better working relationship in the kingdom and the democratic deficits. So it's kind of like, where are we going to go, you know? So I'm looking forward to the afspraaklijst, because what happens on Friday, we have a consensus of what we agreed on how we're going to move forward. Are we going to, A, be okay with Holland taking more control of the Caribbean countries, because that's really what it is, or B, let's do a reset button and have a discussion on the relationship and how we can move forward and really unite in the kingdom, or not. That is what IPKO is right now, and that COHO has actually brought us to that discussion. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to the outcome of that and where we're going to end up. So
in some ways, it became that unifying measure to, because you always hear, let's come to the table, but it's sometimes treated as all right, thanks for being here and that's it. But now you actually have an element that really requires absolute full input and consensus.
And then on top of that, what is very, very interesting is 2 things in Holland. Our very own Urine Boyte has put the Article 73 on the Kennis agenda to discuss Article 73 decolonization, and I think also reparations is going to be a topic of discussion, and I think a discussion on slavery, a report on slavery. Those 3 discussions are upcoming. and then the VVD Kingsma. I'm not. It's a brand new MP that actually has swapped seats with Bosman. Stated that she's going to Kamingma. I'm not sure.
I could probably look it up.
I'm sorry if I'm not saying her name correctly. But she sent out an article stating that she's going to execute a proposal by Bosman to make it easier for the Dutch Caribbean countries to leave the kingdom. So while you sometimes think that in the Dutch Caribbean countries we're all over the place, seemingly over there you have D66 talking about let's talk decolonization, let's talk reparation, and you have VVD saying let's make it easier for them to get out of the kingdom. I think we need to discuss really the elephant in the room here, and it's our relationship, and that's where I think we need to go. This IPKO, and I always said that this IPKO has got to be the IPKO of all IPKO because we can finally now address the elephant in the room. Concerns. And when I look at all the afspraken and all the other IPKOs, the agreements, and everything is repeated, and nothing is done. So Maarten is going to be proposing something very strong. I don't want to say it as yet because I'm still waiting for support. Internally, not internally, but
you also, I get you.
Yes.
You don't want to say just before
we want to really. I'm a doer, Ralph. I can't sit idly and spin around. I'm not that type of person. I want to see things done, like real tangible things done for my country, and I want us to set a target date and get it done, and that's where I hope to see IPKO, the fruits of this IPKO. I really want to see that we come to a consensus, a real consensus, because we're trying to get consensus on other things and we can't, like the geschillenrekening, the dispute regulation. We can't get that done. Imagine the COHO.
I think that's been 4 years with that one?
Yes, it's been more than that, I think. I think even more than that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow, 12 years, okay. Right.
Actually, it was part of the agreement for 10-10-10. That had to be done. But it's been a topic of discussion for 12 years. It says a lot.
I last saw an article about it in 2018, so I thought maybe that was around when it started. Okay, wow, so even further than that.
One of the agreements that we had to make. We can't make that yet. It says a lot.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and delve a bit more into that. So to our listeners, stay tuned. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the News Behind the News with Ralph Kintav on Mix 94.7 FM. And this afternoon, I'm joined with the President of Parliament, Ms. Grisha Heyliger-Marten. So, we're basically right into the meat of the matter, which is, of course, the COHO and IPKO, which is taking place this week. And you said quite a bit, which is pretty interesting as far as, one, the dispute regulation, not being handled such a long time.
Yeah, we just checked it a while ago, 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years. The changes to the COHO that will be pending, yes. But also the statute itself, which in decades, has basically not been touched.
70 years very soon. So,
in listening to you, but also with my own observation, one of the things that is definitely apparent is that you rightfully stated, some of the real hard, tough discussions that we've had to have, we've postponed it, but I think, we've reached the end of the stick. So, of course, we look forward to what will come out of it on the part of our neighboring, sister islands, but as well as the Netherlands itself. At the end of the day, we do know as well that, they have varying positions.
Yes.
So let's see what reigns at the end, basically.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Correct.
So another thing, though, to highlight is the fact that last week you shared a letter, basically stating that, from your point of view, you don't believe that the COHO should be supported in any form in Parliament. Can you share with us some elements that made you come to that conclusion?
Well, mainly I think in the letter I share the sentiments of the Prime Minister herself, where she stated in her presentation that she's doing fine without it. I mean, she's meeting the deadlines of the country packages, so she don't see any need for it, and which is true, rightfully so. We're meeting we're meeting the target dates, and we're doing very fine. We're doing fine with that, and the other thing is, another thing I pinpointed is that I wanted to highlight that certain things that's happening in Holland, if they're being discriminatory to their own Dutch passport holders. And we had a sad report which was one of the UN bodies that we petitioned in the summer of 2021, that concluded that indeed it's discriminatory, this trajectory of the COHO, and that you should dialogue more with the Dutch Caribbean islands to get to not trample on their democracy. That said report, we got that 2 weeks after we petitioned that UN body. So I feel completely, when I look at Article 73 of the UN Charter, where I think 73A says that you need to have respect for their culture, respect for their political means, respect for their, and rebuild the country. They're not following that. What was more, what confirmed for me more that we're not busy following the trajectory of Article 73 is simple. And I wanted to pull it up because I wanted to read it for everyone. And I always read it because I want people to really get the gist of what 73 entails. I'm not going to read it complete, but at least understand this part, that to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their politics, economic, social, and educational advancement, their treatment, and their protection against abuses, but to ensure respect for culture and the process. So here we are now. I'll give you a perfect example where in the country packages they're suggesting the land tax. Now, if St. Maarten says no, and the COHO entity says no, we think it's better. I'm sorry, you didn't justify it enough. It's coming. You didn't respect the culture of my people, because I can give you a perfect example of what's happening right now in Bonaire. They imposed the land tax in Bonaire, and all the locals are losing their land because they're not able to pay for that tax. And what's happening then? Who's buying it over? Dutch.
Metropolitans, yep.
Are buying it over. The people are losing their land. And if you allow the COHO to have such a far-reaching strength to override me, then you're not respecting my culture. B, to develop self-government, to take due account for the political aspirations of the people and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institution. Let's stop right there. To develop, remember, and I know it's a harsh word, Ralph, colonization, but it's the reality. And people seem to think sometimes that I'm aggressive and I always come across harsh, but all I'm doing is stating the obvious facts. You colonized my country, you took from me, and if you want to decolonize, that means you have to replenish for free. I have to pay back this money for reforms, Ralph. Really, this is really what we're busy with? So because you think you decolonize me, you can come and tell me now that I have to pay you back with 0% interest. Oh, it's 0% interest. I need to, I can't. And I always keep making reference to this. Fat pig getting food, fed, and he's going to explode, and you can't take no more. We can't pay those loans. So you're not following this trajectory if you really said you're decolonized. To further international peace and security, they go and make decisions for us internationally. They go and say that I'm going to start a war with this one. I'm going to do, without asking me if I'm okay with it, and without asking if it will hurt my country. I don't get a say. To promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research, to operate with one another, and when and where appropriate, with specialized international bodies. You see this one here, D? Plasterk said this, 2017. He said to the Dutch Parliament that the countries are allowed to go and seek assistance abroad. Now, if you pay clean attention, I said all of this to say this. In my letter to the Prime Minister, I also alluded to 13 or 14 questions I asked about capacity building outside of the kingdom. I think, and I believe, we have the right and the choice to go outside of the building and receive grants, go outside of the kingdom and receive grants free. When I say grants, you know what I mean, free money to help build our country. Please consider doing that. That is one of my alternative to not going with the COHO, that we can find and seek capacity building outside of the country internationally. Many countries are doing it right now. Many non-territorial countries are getting assistance from the UN for free now that are still colonized, non-territories that are still colonized, are receiving assistance from the UN. And we can do that too. The second, my second reason for not going with the COHO is that we can do it on our own. We can. So that's why 3 days later, I don't know if you paid keen attention to that, I also sent a letter too, because it was Carnival, but I was doing my work during Carnival.
The letter about financing.
About
financing,
I
read it,
yes.
Okay.
About increasing our own national budget and finding easy, low-hanging fruits to find a way to increase our national budget.
Yeah, no, so you mentioned a syntax, finally implement the Airbnb law, which has been sitting there for a while, and some other related stuff.
Right, and also talking to the Minister of Finance of Curacao, because they found a way to become tax compliant, and it's been working for them. Their method that they chose.
How recently did they implement that?
I don't have the specifics, but I know that recently, a few months ago, or maybe a year ago, that they, not even a year, because how long have they been in government? Well, a few months ago then, the Minister of Finance stated that if you pay 50% or a certain percentage of your tax, the rest is written off. And they did that, and since then, the compliance has went up. And now they're busy with something else. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I know exactly what they're working on now, but I would love to have our Minister of Finance dialogue with the Minister of Finance of Curacao to find out what they're doing.
Well, another element even with that too is to also look into some of the tax exemptions that exist, for example, that don't contribute to the pot. One of them being one that has been brought up many times, for example, the casino TOT exemption.
Yes, and that's what MP, if you really pay attention, you see that MP George Pantaflat also sent a letter to the Minister of TOT.
I read it. I'm just reiterating.
Do understand what's happening right now. Members of Parliament are not getting enough information from government. You notice 2 MPs that are part of the coalition are asking them to come up and show us the plan, because right now,
well, I understand, because it's part of
we're pulling the information out from them to give to the people so that they understand.
Based on what you're saying, because it's part of what, for example, the media itself has faced, in terms of getting answers to questions. But listening to what you shared, in regards to Article 73, there's 2 things that came to mind. One of them being, which one was it? Okay, point B, which is to take account of the political aspirations of the peoples. One of that now, of course, comes to the question of what is St. Martin's political aspiration? Does the last one still stand, which is basically, I'm referring to the referendum, that took place, because, what exactly is St. Martin's vision? What do people see as St. Martin's future? So that's one. But also, the COHO, appears to be another supervisory body that, while it has overreach, I question the outcome. And why I say that is because even without the COHO, St. Martin has its high councils and advisory bodies. It has, for example, the SED, the General Audit Chamber. We now have the Integrity Chamber. We have let's say, a Government Accounting Bureau. We have several bodies. You have the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
The Chamber of Commerce also has that mandate to give advice, etc. But one of the things you're still lacking is the actual, I'm not saying the government has to implement every advice given, but all these councils or entities can really share that for the most, or the ombudsman, etc. There's a lot of advice that is simply not taken.
But that's exactly
but
what
also
I said earlier.
But also to what you're saying in terms of the money, financial aspect of it. When you really take a good look at our trajectory as well, you see a gross mismanagement of funds. I've read several of the General Audit Chamber reports, and it's and as a citizen, it's shameful to see constant reports year over year. Basically the national budget doesn't properly give the financial statements of the country do not give a proper account of how money is spent, and you can see that if you look at the one from 2019, 18. Year over year, you're seeing that same thing. So I question then, okay, even if St. Martin receives a bag of money, from a benevolent entity or nation, but will we spend it the right way?
Exactly.
It goes back to that management factor, and even as you shared,
it goes back to
who do you have in place to also handle these responsibilities. So we also need to ensure that, I'm saying all that to say, there has to be a great level of accountability on our part, because while we cannot ignore the fact that we live in a colonial setting, there are also elements where St. Maarten has grossly failed.
Yes, you're right.
You know?
And it goes back to exactly what I said just earlier in our interview, is the type of people we need to start being real with ourselves and really don't hire for political. If I go in from next election, I want to find a person that has the right background, right in education to work for the country. It's not like because, oh, you campaign for me, you can get a job. We have to stop doing business as usual, and that's where we fail.
Pointing people on boards.
Pointing the right people in the right positioning, the right people in these ministries, in their cabinets to get the job done. That's where we failed. That's exactly where we failed. It starts with us.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not only financially, I know for a fact the Minister of Finance and the Minister of TIAT has a plan, but we need to, MP Pantaflet and I are trying to pull that plan out. We want to really pull it out of them to explain it to the people more. We know they do have something in place, but going back to years and years of neglect, it's the quality of the people and government, the government falling every 2 years. We haven't had time to even catch ourselves, and our budget keeps growing because every time government fall, increase in budget, increase in
personnel.
What are we really busy with? We need to really self-reflect. It's not only self-reflection in the kingdom, but self-reflection locally on our own too. And I hope and I pray that more MPs are the young ones, and I see some of the young ones going there and understanding where we went wrong, and let's fix that. Let's fix that. We've been dealt a bad card called COHO, but COHO has now opened our eyes to our reality as well.
Yeah. So on that note, that's basically it, given the time.
That's it.
Yeah. But I'll have you again. I mean, I'm always open to,
we have so much to discuss.
Of course, enlightening people with more information. But just finally, though, there's one thing that I definitely forgot to ask you, is I do know that, one of the hot topics that, of course, has probably died down since, was as it relates to Mr. Hyman, of the airport. Mm-hmm. But one thing in particular, I think that maybe has definitely been forgotten is I remember you mentioning that there will be an investigation on who signed the dossiers that was first submitted. So how is that going? And coming to a bottom line on that.
Two things. Okay, so the dossier is one, Hyman is the second one. So let's talk about the dossier first. I did my investigation.
Okay.
I did my investigation, and the conclusion was that the secretary of the then chairperson signed it, and the chairperson stated he never received it. Okay. I also mentioned in my investigation that I would have to take I have to go back in history or go back in the past to really pinpoint what happened to that dossier, because it's his word against hers. And that's the conclusion of my investigation.
Okay.
And what I did, I said, allow Mr. Hyman to provide me with a dossier, and I will resubmit it so that we can see the dossier.
Which was that?
Which was done.
Gotcha.
But I'm waiting now to see if we should, I'm based on that, now move fast forward to the meeting with the Minister of TIAT. Minister of TIAT, we were supposed to return. The Friday, the minister was supposed to send his answers to us, and then we would have called the meeting right after, because you can't send me the answers on Friday and expect me to have the meeting the same day. And you always hear in Parliament, they say, we just received the information, we didn't read it. But between the minister, between the I think we had
what was that?
The minister was also sick, and on top of that, we had some vacation days. We weren't able to call back. We were supposed to return. The minister was supposed to return Monday of last week to come back with the answers, but he was sick, so we weren't able to find a right time for him to come back. He has to return to answer those questions publicly. They're already public. I think one of the MPs kind of publicized it. It's a public document. But he has to come back in round 2. And based on that, based on his answers, then from there we will decide, or I will, because I'm the one that called the meeting, what are we going to do now with the dossier? Are we going to do an inquiry? But looking at how an inquiry is set up, it takes a long time to set up. But I'm considering it,
financial part
because
of it,
from what we've concluded is the minister, Mr. Hyman, was fired for that. Not because he's under investigation, Not because he didn't melt and that he was in pre-trial detention. It was because he, from what we've gathered, he leaked information. Now we need to look at the information, and that's next. Carnival and all the vacation days has taken up, but don't think that it has ended. It's going to, we still have to come to a strong conclusion how we're going to move forward with the dossier, and based on the answers the minister has responded to us, how we're going to move forward with that.
Okay. And then I guess finally, again, another thing that just came to mind.
You see, we need more time.
We do, but I can't afford to go over time too much. But another thing that came to mind, as the last discussion we kind of had there on the financial aspect and so forth. I think the bottom line is even as we speak about the airport, is that economic gateway. It needs to be opened, polished and opened. That is the main thing. But in conclusion, ensuring that presently, we take a proper stock of whatever areas we're lacking in terms of human development,
yes,
and fill those gaps, because even as we speak about decolonization, we can be decolonized and still underdeveloped.
Before that, we need to come up with a full breakdown of what we need. Before to me, listen, I think one thing that I didn't mention, I'm sorry, but I really have to mention this. I hope I can.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, it's okay.
Remember I said in IPKO we need to discuss the relationship. I think it's a AAA effect. The relationship has to, if we could conclude this AAA effect, I think we'll be great. And that is acknowledgement of slavery, apology of slavery, and accountability for slavery. If we could finally sit down and come to that kind of consensus and then decide, okay, I colonize you, let's decolonize, let's build your nation accordingly, I think then, and only then, we can talk about moving forward with independence, moving forward with building our people. But we need to come to that, because we remember 12 years ago, we started 10-10-10 on a deficit of 180 million guilders that was never paid. They set on were you aware of that, Ralph?
Mm-hmm.
Was never paid. But 2015, we had a balanced budget. 2016, we had a balanced budget. 2017, we were about to have a balanced budget. Hurricane came. It says something about our islands. It says something about our resilience. It says something about Swaliga, because we're salt. We preserve. We're resilient. That means we can. Don't give up on us. So I think that's where we really need to come. The AAA effect. Acknowledgement, apology, and accountability. And accountability starts with decolonization, which is reparations.
Okay. Well, as you say
but we need to have our own game plan in place. We need to know what we need to finalize the decolonization process. Yes.
I don't know where we're leading people. Yeah, because with that, I do know Maarten has expressed its interest in being part of CARICOM, observer, associate member, and CARICOM itself also has that extension.
That's exactly where they're going. So that's where
the reparations committee, commission, one of those. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so you'll be back again.
Yes.
Of course, there's more to talk about.
Is one hot topic that's still on my to-do list. It's still actually occurring. And then I'll explain you that another time.
Okay. All right, MP. And much success with IPKO, and to our viewers and listeners, thank you guys so much for joining us on today's program, and be sure to join us again tomorrow. Take care.